everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Gorilla Whale, the Godzilla watch-along podcast. We're covering something that's not Godzilla, but we got to because Monsterverse. Anyway, I am your kaiju consultant, Kevin Carpenter.
And I'm wishing you a good morning, Vietnam, Kayla Knudsen.
God, okay, before we get into the movie proper, I just need to stress, this is a Vietnam War movie featuring King Kong, and not only do all of the visual aesthetics of this movie make that very clear, and also the story elements of the movie make that clear, but also, like, the first 30 minutes, you get all of the Vietnam War songs except for Fortunate Son.
They do not touch Fortunate Son in this one.
Yeah, they don't touch, they don't touch that. Yeah. But they do have...
It's too obvious.
Too obvious? But these songs were not too obvious. White Rabbit by Jefferson Airplane, Long Cool Woman in a Black Dress by the Hollies, Paranoid by Black Sabbath, Brother by Jorge Ben, Bad Moon Rising by Creedence Clearwater Revival, Ziggy Stardust by David Bowie. They got all the hits,
It's
baby.
a great soundtrack.
It's a great soundtrack, and it's so clear this movie had so much money.
Speaking of the soundtrack, I did see one review about this movie that was saying the only reason that it's set during the Vietnam War is because they wanted to use the classic rock soundtrack. And I'm like, I disagree. I don't think you watched this movie if you think that's the only reason that it's set in the Vietnam War. I think it's very justified being set in the Vietnam War, but we will get into that.
Yes, there were various ideas for this movie.
I guess technically it's set at the very end of the Vietnam War.
Yeah, it's set at the end of the Vietnam War. There were some ideas to set this movie in like 1917. There were some ideas to set it like before the Vietnam War. And then they settled on the tail end of the Vietnam War. And honestly, as soon as they made that decision, they were like, all right, lock in. We're going all in.
Yeah. Specifically, the review was like, oh, it's not set in the Depression era like the original King Kong, and it's not set in modern times, because you never need to justify setting a movie in the time that it's coming out, of course. You know, it's just set in the 70s because they wanted a classic rock soundtrack. And I'm like, did you pay attention at all? Like, it is so very, I mean, you could pull back and say part of it is like the overarching monster versus situation of the timeline or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
We're like, no, because Kong is about exploitation. War is exploitation taken to its most extreme, and the Vietnam War especially had so much controversy around it, surrounding the reasons that we were there, surrounding the protests, surrounding the age. Like, it had one of the youngest average ages for soldiers in any American war, I think, so far. You feel free to fact check me on that, but I just remember in history class, it was like the average age of the World War II soldier was several years higher than the average age of the Vietnam War. A lot of them were like 18, 19. They were very young.
Yeah.
So it makes a lot of sense to me that in a man versus nature, in a war where it famously felt like the jungle was fighting you because of the guerrilla warfare, the invasion of, of an outside force for muddy reasons into another country, and the exploitation and the meaninglessness of war. Like, that was a huge thing, and I felt like it really went very well with King Kong.
Yeah, and there's a lot of different inspirations for this movie, as we'll go into as we go into it.
It's not all Apocalypse Now, but it's a lot of Apocalypse Now.
It's a lot of Apocalypse Now. And once they got like, okay, we're going to do King Kong Vietnam War movie, like I said, they locked in, and it's like, all right, subtlety is for chumps. Let's do this.
It was, I believe he said specifically one of his other influences too is Miyazaki.
Oh, he had yeah. Actually, I had that as one of my fun facts.
So yeah, this movie is just Miyazaki meets Apocalypse Now.
Yeah.
Cool.
So they bring in this director, Jordan Vogt Roberts, and he did some stuff in TV. He had like one feature film that he premiered at Sundance before that. It was not monster movie related. But then somehow he got the deal to direct Kong Skull Island.
Let me tell you something about men in Hollywood. All they have to do is get something into Sundance, and then they will be given $150 million for their second picture.
That's fair. This is $185 million, by the way.
185 million.
Also, Jordan Vogt Roberts' career is fascinating because he was also like tied into a Metal Gear Solid movie that didn't materialize, and he was tied into a Gundam movie that still hasn't materialized. Like, this is very much a guy who like clearly knows what he's doing, but also keeps getting attached to projects that just kind
Oh
of
my god.
filter out. What's up?
I know his Sundance movie. I didn't even I looked
Say it for the
it up.
audience.
Yeah.
What's the movie?
Oh, it's The Kings of Summer.
Yeah, there we go. He went from Kings of Summer to Kong Skull Island.
Yeah.
And those are like his 2 feature films.
Oh, he lived in Arizona for a little while.
But yeah, like you were saying, so Vogt Roberts stated in an interview with Nerdist, quote, Miyazaki's Princess Mononoke was actually a big reference in the way that these spirit creatures sort of have their own domains and fit within that. So a big thing was trying to design creatures that felt realistic and could exist in an ecosystem that feels sort of wild and out there, and then also design things that simultaneously felt beautiful and horrifying at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of other references in this movie as well. There's a reference to the Akira jacket from the hit anime movie Akira. There's, of course, Apocalypse Now all over this movie. And, you know, this is also a movie that paid attention to the previous King Kong and Godzilla franchise as well. Like, there's a lot going on in this. So, you know, let's go into this. Historical context, we already kind of hit the beats. Vietnam War was a thing. I don't know how much I need to go into what the Vietnam War was. It was a boondoggle, folks. It was bad.
It was a hot fucking mess.
Originally, Peter Jackson's King Kong, made in 2005, was going to have a sequel called Skull Island, but that didn't materialize. And then when Godzilla 2014 made a bunch of money, they had ideas about the MonsterVerse, and then they were like, hang on, wait a minute. You know, the MCU was big because they got all these movies and then put them together. What other character could we make their own solo movie and then have them clash with Godzilla in a later crossover movie?
Let's go back to basics, people.
Back to basics. We're bringing back Kong.
And listen, Godzilla vs. Kong remains one of my favorite films in the entire, like, Godzilla canon.
Oh, you mean King Kong versus Godzilla?
Yeah, whatever, the first one.
Yes.
From the
We have to
50s.
stress that because
Right.
King Kong versus Godzilla was the first one.
Yeah.
And that's important because King Kong got top billing because
Yeah,
he
because
was
he
the
was-
more famous giant monster at the
Yeah.
time. But now, MonsterVerse, it's Godzilla versus Kong.
'Cause
And that's the
Godzilla
movie
is
coming
the
after
lead.
this. Well, coming after Godzilla, King of the Monsters.
I would argue, though, at least in America, I don't know that Godzilla is I mean, I don't know. I think that they're equal in a lot of ways in terms of recognition and pop culture for the average American, you know.
Well, I will say that Tom Hiddleston, Samuel L. Jackson, and Brie Larson were really excited to be in a King Kong movie.
Yeah, it's King Kong.
Like, Samuel L. Jackson was like, yeah, I got the call. It's like, we want you in a King Kong movie. He's like, awesome. And he was like, Samuel L. Jackson was like, I was the second choice. They wanted to get another guy, but he didn't want to travel because they did actually shoot a lot of scenes in this movie in Vietnam.
Mhm.
But Samuel L. Jackson was like, no, I'm going to be in a King Kong movie.
Yeah.
My family can deal.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when the 2005 Peter Jackson King Kong came out. That felt like a huge deal.
Mm-hmm.
I remember seeing a lot of stuff about it on like Entertainment Tonight or whatever. Like it seemed like a really I mean, I was younger, you know, so perhaps some of my perception was skewed, but it seemed to me that King Kong 2005 seemed like a bigger deal than Godzilla 2014 when Godzilla 2014 came out.
I can't argue with you on that one, mostly because I am biased. I noticed the 2014 Godzilla
Yeah.
more than the 2005 King Kong.
But that's like your thing.
But that's my thing. It's
Yeah.
like Godzilla. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Godzilla, so I'm going to notice when he does the new movie.
I will say this. When I was 10 years old, I was dying to see King Kong 2005.
Yeah.
So my dad had to get it on DVD so he could fast forward through the bug scenes. If you listen to this podcast, then you know this story. But when I was a teenager, an older teenager, when when Godzilla came out, I was like, whatever, you know.
So yeah, so that's 2005's King Kong though. This is 2017's Kong Skull Island, released on March 10th,
I
2017.
did see this in theaters too, by the way.
It's an amazing movie.
Again, King Kong, I show up for. I have showed up for.
See, that's the secret dynamic of this podcast, actually. Originally,
Yeah.
it was I've seen them all. You haven't seen any except for Godzilla minus one. No, actually, it's I'm the Godzilla fan. You're the Kong fan.
I've seen the King Kongs.
All right, so let's get into it. So 2017, this comes out. We start in 1944, World War II. American fighter pilot Hank Marlowe and Japanese fighter pilot Gunpei Ikari crash land on Skull Island. The two try to kill each other, but right before Gunpei can stab Hank with his dagger, a colossal Kong appears over a cliff. This is going to be a running thing in this movie, by the way, where the giant ass monkey Kong sneaks up on people. It happens like 4 separate times in this
They
movie.
get tunnel vision. They're not paying attention to their surroundings.
So we flash forward to 1974. America is ending its involvement in the Vietnam War.
Note that wording. We abandoned the war. We didn't lose it.
We didn't lose it. We left.
That's a point of contention with Samuel L. Jackson's character.
Yep. And
Colonel.
so Monarch agents Bill Randa, played by John Goodman, and Houston Brooks ask a U.S. senator for funding. They found a mythical island and they want to explore it before the Soviets find it. There's also a big moment. John Goodman's, I think, is like his first line.
Yeah.
Is like him appearing in front of a protest group and being like, "There'll never be a more screwed up time in Washington."
LOL.
Behind the scenes, they did test screenings for this film before the US 2016 elections.
Mm-hmm.
No one laughed. And then the movie came out.
And everybody laughed.
Yep.
Yep.
So as time goes on, so they get the funding because they don't want the Soviets to find Skull Island. So we're going to get the group together. We have a military escort led by Lieutenant Colonel Preston Packard, played by Samuel L. Jackson. He's pretty intense. He does not like that they just abandoned the Vietnam War. And so he's very desperate to have a campaign where he can get a win.
Well, he has this moment as they're packing everything up when we first meet him. He's looking at this box of medals and he makes this comment about, like, what was it all for? You know, he's feeling existential about the violence that he has been participating in, that he has inflicted, that has been inflicted upon him. And with Vietnam, there's no victory.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can say that we would have won the war if we stuck with it, we abandoned it, whatever, but there is no clear victory. Whereas with World War II, there is a very clear victory, and World War II is heavily mythologized in America, in our popular imagination. And a lot of the things that were shadier about it have been swept under the rug in our pop culture imagination of it. Sometimes we do talk about it, the internment camps, to begin with. I'm going to stop now before we get into that. But I think it's
We've talked a lot about
yeah.
World War II on this Godzilla podcast.
But I think it's really interesting that this movie, because this is another reason that this movie taking place in Vietnam is justified, because Godzilla is tied up with World War II, right? King Kong predates World War II, Vietnam, etc., all of this stuff. But Godzilla is forever tied to World War II and the end of World War II in the Pacific Theater. We start this movie with an American and a Japanese soldier being stranded on an island and fighting each other. Even though they're stranded on a desert island, they're still going to try and kill each other because that is their mission. And then we jump to Vietnam, because Vietnam lived in the shadow of World War II in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
It was a different generation. It was this generation that had grown up on World War II movies, on their grandparents or fathers potentially being in World War II, in the country being so united, and then the country being so divided in Vietnam, and the objectives being way less clear. And not to mention the fact that the aftermath of World War II led to Vietnam. Vietnam was a Cold War war, which was formulated from the post-World War II, the division of Europe and the rise of the Soviet Union and the U.S. as superpowers, and Vietnam was a proxy war of all of that. So it makes a lot of sense for me if this is like a Godzilla tie-in movie that we're talking about Vietnam as a like butterfly effect from World War II and in relation to World War II and Kong in relation to Godzilla and all of that. But what's interesting, I did look up the medals that are in his box.
Oh.
Yeah, so I can tell you what the medals are. He has a Distinguished Flying Cross, which is an Air Force decoration. Makes sense. He's an Air Force colonel. Charles Lindbergh got this.
Oh.
And so did H.W. Bush.
Hmm.
Amelia Earhart also got the Distinguished Flying Cross before it was limited to military personnel. It was established in the 1920s. He also has the National Defense Service Medal, which is a service in qualifying emergency. Combat service is not required. Periods of eligibility include the Korean War, Vietnam War, Persian Gulf War, and Global War on Terrorism. So this is a post-World War II medal. He could potentially, I'm not sure. I tried to look up like when you would get this National Defense Service Medal because technically you are eligible for it as soon as you begin your tour or your service in a qualifying emergency. So it could be from Vietnam. Basically, I was trying to figure out whether or not he served in Korea, the Forgotten War. And then, so he could have, if this was from Korea and he hasn't gotten his Vietnam War one yet. Or and I think actually it might be from Vietnam. Never mind, I'm going to move on. Hold on, because I can't remember something.
But no, it's cool.
Hold on, wait.
Okay.
No, I'm going through.
We're not moving on.
Oh, yeah, here it is. Okay, service members who earned the medal during the first qualifying period and who again became entitled to the medal wear a bronze star on the ribbon. So I do think it's from the Korean War, potentially, because he doesn't have his bronze star yet. Or maybe it's from the Vietnam War and not the Korean War because he doesn't have the bronze star on that medal. Like, he should, if you served in 2 wars, you would have the medal and then a bronze star on the ribbon. Or additional bronze stars for every eligibility time frame, but it'd be very hard to get to multiple eligibility time frames. Anyway, he also has the Bronze Star Medal, which was established in 1944 for exceptional service, distinguished service, etc. And then he has a Legion of Merit. Hold on, wait. The Legion of Merit is 7th in the order of precedence of all U.S. military awards. It was worn after the Defense Superior Service Medal and before the Distinguished Flying Cross. And then, he has a Purple Heart, which was established in 1932.
Dang.
Yeah.
You did your research.
Yeah, he's got a lot of medals.
And, like, the movie crew also did their research. Like, they didn't just throw a bunch of, like, prop medals into a box.
No, they always get real stuff.
Yeah. That's fascinating. I love that. But yeah, it's immediately established this guy is, like, he's not just in the military. His identity is being part of the military. And so, like, a lot of the other characters here are like, all right, we signed on. They
were probably drafted.
Yeah, they were probably drafted. And meanwhile, Samuel Jackson is like, no, I am trying to leave a legacy. This is something ideological for me. And I do appreciate he has a conversation later on with anti-war photographer Mason Weaver, played by Brie Larson, where they have that exchange where she's like, yeah, we lost the war, and Lieutenant Colonel Preston Packard is like, no, we abandoned it.
Yeah, he probably, given his age, he probably was a young man in the Korean War. I don't know if he would have served in World War II, but he's very clearly a career military man, and so when he's looking in that box and when he's saying, what was it all for? And then he's correcting Brie Larson about, no, we abandoned it. Yeah. He's trying to justify his entire life. And it's really hard, I think, for him to reconcile that with all of the violence and loss and stuff.
And in a movie with way too many characters, it's surprising that, like, his character gets the most development.
It's Samuel L. Jackson, baby.
Samuel L. Jackson.
He's good.
Yeah.
He's so good.
He's so good. He's a great human antagonist. He's one of the best human antagonists in, like, this whole franchise, honestly.
He's so good at giving, like, depth to...
I think it's also interesting how the original King Kong, the motivation was simple.
Yeah.
We're gonna make a movie, darling.
Yeah.
Get on the boat with us. And then it's just like spectacle. But with this movie, we take, well, a more space Godzilla approach where we have a bunch of characters who all have different motivations.
Yeah.
Packard wants a win. Bill Randa of Monarch wants to secretly prove giant monsters exist. his buddy Brooks wants to test out his hollow Earth theory. We have anti-war photographer Mason Weaver, who's doing a like something else is going on here. I'm going to sign up for
She's
this
seeking
mission.
truth,
She's
which is
seeking
a
truth.
huge theme oftentimes in the Godzilla movies.
And we have tracker James Conrad played
Joseph.
Huh?
Isn't it Joseph?
No, it's James Conrad.
Oh.
I'm
It is.
double-check.
Sorry, the Conrad I think is for Heart of Darkness author Joseph Conrad, so I got his.
Well, and there's I was not able to find an official source on this, but it would make sense for James Conrad to be named after the Heart of Darkness author
Because Apocalypse Now.
Considering Apocalypse Now,
Yeah. If you don't know, Apocalypse Now is an adaptation of Heart of Darkness set in the Vietnam War.
Yeah. But the tracker, like, he's doing this for the money, pretty much.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, it's like we have a very simple motivation in the original King Kong movie. And now in this movie, it's like, all right, we're going to spend all of Act 1 getting all these characters together with all of their different motivations coming together for the mission.
Yeah.
And then we're going to split them up 10 minutes later.
I also, just real quick before we move on, I do want to flag one more thing about Samuel L. Jackson's character.
Go for it.
He's black. And I do think that it's not something that the movie explicitly talks about. But this is a guy that is serving the United States military he has been serving them in the midst of the civil rights movement.
Mm-hmm.
And the history of Black Americans in the military is something that has been, very fraught with, on one hand, the challenge has been like, well, why should I serve the military of this government in this country that has sought to oppress and exploit me? And then with other people saying like, oh, it's a way to like prove our Americanness. And, and I'm as a white girl who has definitely never served in the military, not speaking, I'm not trying to speak on any one way, but I do think it's just adds like a layer to his existentialism, I think. To exist as like this Black man who has been serving in a time that is incredibly volatile and who has dedicated his life to this government, which has exploited, Black Americans, and then is also exploiting, just these young American men in general. Like, it's a very sticky sort of, there's a lot going on with him that the movie does not explicitly talk about, but I do think it kind of informs him in a lot of ways.
He's not a cartoon villain.
No.
You understand every move he makes.
Yeah. And I do think that at the end of the day, like, when we go back to the original King Kong, that is something that is very fraught with racial implications and dynamics going on. With the Islanders, with King Kong himself.
In chains.
Yeah, the way that King Kong is like presented. That LeBron, I don't know if you guys remember this, but there was a LeBron James magazine cover.
Oh yeah, where he did the King Kong pose.
Yeah, and it was, I remember talking about that in college. Like, there's a lot going on with all of it. So I think that picking Samuel L. Jackson.
Perfect casting.
Not just because he's Samuel L. Jackson and he's got that like charisma and he can do a compelling villain, but it's like, it is important. Like, that character I think had to be Black just to add to like the underlying depth of the movie.
Samuel L. Jackson, perfect casting.
Yeah.
John Goodman, perfect casting.
Oh, yeah.
Both of them.
Everybody was doing a great job in this movie.
Everyone's doing a great job. It's just most of the people didn't have characters.
Yeah, there's a lot of the soldiers are kind of thin, and I would say that Conrad's thin. Conrad is riding on Tom Hiddleston's charisma 100%.
And like Mason Weaver, the anti-war photographer, she doesn't really have an arc, but Brie Larson, she said in an interview, like the reason she signed up was because she was super excited to play a heroine instead of a damsel in distress.
Yeah.
And this is, of course, pre-Captain Marvel.
Yes, and I think the thing about Mason Weaver's character in this film, which, I mean, obviously it's a nod to the blonde from King Kong original.
You gotta have a woman
You gotta have
King
a blonde.
Kong movie.
You gotta have a blonde.
You gotta have a blonde.
But she is providing, even though her character does not necessarily have an arc or a lot of depth. She is providing that lens of bringing a greater sense of humanity to the film,
Mm-hmm.
not just to Kong, but also to the indigenous people of the island. The way that this movie treats the indigenous people of Skull Island is very different from the way that King Kong 1933 did.
Yeah.
They are shown with a lot of humanity. First and foremost, like there's a lot of yes, none of them have like speaking roles. You know,
I want to
you
I want to
can,
delve into the Iwis when we get to them because
yeah.
they're very interesting. But let's get through a little bit more of the movie.
Yeah, I
If
just wanted to say, in a film that is historically about exploitation and spectacle,
Mm,
like you mentioned, 1933, they're like, we're gonna go make a movie, and the whole thing is like putting this beast on camera.
yeah.
Here's Mason Weaver with her camera, and instead of it being exploitation, it's a lot about like showing truth and showing people this humanity. Because as Samuel L. Jackson said, it's photographers like her that lost them the war or led them to abandon the war because she was showing her like the footage that was coming out of Vietnam
Yeah.
that was showing how violent and traumatic the whole thing was, did turn public opinion against it because they're like, what the fuck is this brutality all for, you know? So it's the other side of journalism and the other side of the camera and the good that the camera can do.
And you also need her character to build up the mythology of the
Yeah.
MonsterVerse because every MonsterVerse movie after this is going to reference Mason Weaver's photos.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. All right. So, briefing on the ship. So, Skull Island is surrounded by a perpetual storm. So, that's why it's been undiscovered for this long. It's just a meteorological
Love it.
anomaly. Very cool. So, everyone's going to take helicopters through the storm, and one helicopter is going to have a little Nixon bobblehead because Vietnam.
Yeah.
And once they get to Skull Island, they're going to drop bombs on the island to conduct a geological survey. And they can't like use their radios through the perpetual storm. So they're going to meet their refuel team on the north side of the island in 3 days. So immediate world building, immediate stakes, immediate time frame. Love it. Love it. So the mission starts. They get their helicopters through the storm. They get onto Skull Island. It's beautiful. They drop some bombs. The geologist Brooks is like, oh, hey, it's hollow underneath there. That does more for my hollow earth theory. And by the way, doing this rewatch, the amount that they've set up the hollow earth stuff before we get to Godzilla versus Kong, I completely forgot that this was like foreshadowed. When we get to the hollow earth and Godzilla versus Kong, I'm
also,
like, where did this come from?
The entire sequence of getting through the storm and the first couple of minutes that we're on the island is fucking great.
They're
and it's
playing the Vietnam songs.
Yeah, they're playing the songs. Colonel Packard is like, remember, you know, they're going through the storm. It's shaky and there's lightning everywhere. And you're like, oh my God, are any of the helicopters going to go down in this? And Colonel Packard is like, think of Icarus, whose father made him wings of wax, but, you know, he flew too close to the sun. But the United States military is not an irresponsible father and has given us wings of high-grade Pennsylvania steel. And they burst through it, and you're like, hoorah, USA, USA, USA. And they're dropping the bombs, and they're playing the music, and you're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then Kong shows up, and you're like, oh, yeah, all of this is built on a bedrock of rot.
And the way Kong shows up is actually, we don't see Kong at first. Instead, we see a tree being thrown through the air, immediately taking out one of the helicopters.
And
Everyone's
it's
like,
sick.
what?
All the helicopters get through the storm, and then Kong shows up.
So Tree takes out one helicopter. Everyone's like, this wasn't a hostile mission. What? Why didn't one ever? And then we see.
I mean, how do you prepare for a tree being thrown at you?
You don't.
Like, that's
the acting in this moment, because so this is the visual from the poster. We see the rising sun. We see the helicopters.
It's the Apocalypse Now helicopter shot, but with Kong.
And the giant silhouette of Kong in front of the sun. It's so good. It's so iconic. And the acting in the scene of everyone in the helicopters just being so shocked. Like, these are trained military personnel. And this is just something that kind of breaks their brain. Like, literally one guy says, is that a big monkey? And then everything goes down. Kong starts swatting helicopters out of the sky. He grabs a helicopter. A guy falls out and he eats him.
Yeah.
There's another one. A helicopter goes down and a guy like goes down to like drag survivors from it. And then Kong just stomps on them. Like, we are showing Kong killing guys.
It's an absolute hot mess. Wow.
Yeah,
What could it possibly be referencing?
man,
It's
I don't know what you're talking about. We have these soldiers that are at the tail end of Vietnam, a war where they went through the jungles and fought the Viet Cong.
they have the best weapons that the most powerful country on earth could possibly supply. What do you mean a gorilla could take them out?
Not just a gorilla, a Kong.
Whoa! Yeah,
Whoa!
this movie is justified being set in the Vietnam.
Subtlety is for suckers.
Yeah. This movie is not subtle, but it's doing, to me, it's so much like fun. Like, it's a lot of fun. This movie's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You know, like it's fun to watch. It's entertaining. It's not subtle, but I'm like, I don't need it to be, you know?
There's a moment later on in the film where I'm like, this should be a horror movie, but I don't feel scared. Like it is shot as an action movie and I'm having fun. But this is a movie about people going through a hell jungle filled with giant monsters.
Well, it's not full tilt Apocalypse Now. It's just inspired by a lot of Apocalypse Now.
Exactly.
It's still a big budget blockbuster movie. It's very, well, it's not subtly critical of the Vietnam War, but it's not.
There's nothing subtle about this
but
movie.
It's not. It's couching it all in a giant monkey in a lot of ways. So, you know, it's still meant to be a popcorn movie. But yes, it could be. You could absolutely take this script, everything in it, and just shoot it differently, and it would be a horror movie.
Yeah, no, there is an editing challenge where you just kind of mess with the clips and put in some different music, and you could easily make this a horror movie.
I don't even know if you need to change a bunch of the music.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, anyway. Go on.
So the big helicopter massacre.
Yeah.
And everyone regroups, and we now have two groups of survivors that are sort of scattered across the island. We've got Team Military, which is Packard, the soldiers, and John Goodman. I mean, Bill Randa. And we have Team Everyone Else. So we have Conrad, we have Weaver, we have Brooks. We also have San Lin, who is a monarch biologist. She is Chinese. She does nothing in this film, but it is funded by Tencent. So, you know.
So they had to have a Chinese character.
Yeah, this is historical context, folks. This is 2017. This is like peak Hollywood trying to appeal to China. And we're going to get a bit of that too in the next movie. But yeah, this was like, all right, we're going to try to get our collaboration going. And so, you know, we have Tencent's logo real big at the opening of the movie because they put in some money for this.
They could have done better in terms of having a Chinese character that actually felt more central.
No, her role is to stand next to Brooks.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what she does.
That is like the biggest. There's a lot of characters in this movie.
There's so many.
And I understand why there is. Like, they need meat to grind through.
Yeah.
You know? But that is, I would say, the weakness of this movie is that a lot of these characters don't really get a lot of depth. It's a lot of characters being tools for storytelling.
Mm-hmm. You know who agrees with you?
Who?
Director Jordan Vogt Roberts.
Oh, interesting.
So let me get into this fun fact real quick. So do you know the YouTube series Honest Trailers?
Yeah.
So funny videos going over movie trailers with a voice slightly critiquing them.
I feel like anybody that's watching our podcast does know Honest Trailers.
Okay, well, I just want to put in some context in case people don't.
Of
I don't want to
course, yeah.
assume anything that makes an ass out of you and me.
Okay.
So Jordan Vogt Roberts appeared in and co-wrote the Honest Trailers video for Kong Skull Island.
He would.
Yes. He shows up halfway through the video and he's just like, hey, listen, I fundamentally respect film criticism, but you will not measure up to my worst critic, which is myself. Here's my script. And so we go into the Honest Trailers voice and the critiques he has for this movie. There's too many human characters.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. It spends all of Act 1 bringing the cast together, only to split them apart 10 minutes later.
Mm-hmm.
John Goodman has nothing to do but spout exposition.
Mm-hmm.
That said, and also he says it was going for the emotional simplicity of Aliens, but ended up with the complexity of Alien versus Predator. He did, however, blow up about people saying that there were too many helicopters. He's like, there's a shot I made sure to put in that showed the boat and the hangar bays in the boat holding all the helicopters. I made sure to show how many helicopters the boat could hold.
It can hold a lot of helicopters.
And you want Kong to smack down helicopters. Get off my back about this.
I'm like, you guys don't understand. The U.S. military makes boats that can hold a fuck ton of aircraft, like, even in the 70s. they know how to build a damn boat that can fit a lot of helicopters.
So yeah, so nothing we could say about this movie could be worse than what the director
I
says about this movie.
yeah, I
Which is
will
a
say
far
this.
cry from some other directors we've talked about.
I know. I don't disagree with you at all, Robert. I agree with you on all of your assessments. However, given all of that, I feel like the movie still really worked.
Yeah. No, you're right. We
Um,
needed characters for the meat grinder.
Yeah. And I still had a good time watching it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get points docked, but I don't think you get that many points docked. Like, the
Mhm.
things that you did well, I feel like overcame the shallowness of some of those human characters. And I do feel like the cast, for me, the cast had a lot of charisma and chemistry. So even if I didn't really know any of these people very well, I kind of felt good hanging out with them. And I feel like there was a lot of effort put in to try and humanize and give depth to all of too many characters. Was it stuff that was maybe on the nose or easy? Sure. But one of the threads that we had going was Chapman's son, Billy.
Mhm.
And, the whole Dear Billy and all of the soldiers saying, Dear Billy, we're going to die in this hellhole, whatever. All of those little Dear Billy moments, I think, even if it was perhaps low hanging fruit, did do a lot for me. And I liked that through line.
Yeah, you have to have the Top Gun moments, and you have to have the soldier who's like, I'm writing a letter to my son who I can't wait to see again. You're like, ooh,
It's a war movie.
I wonder what'll happen to this guy.
Like, this is a war more than any other kaiju movie until we get to Godzilla -1. This is a war movie.
Yep. So we have our two teams on Skull Island. Team everyone else is pro. Get to the north side of the island to get the hell out of here. They encounter a giant water buffalo. It's beautiful. Meanwhile,
It's Jurassic Park.
It's Jurassic Park. Da-na-na-na-na. Meanwhile, team military, Packard first points a gun at Bill Randa and is like, hey, tell me everything. And Bill Randa is like, hey, so this wasn't a geological survey. I was on a ship that got taken out by Godzilla. He doesn't
It's
say
Jaws.
Godzilla, but yeah. So this mission was actually to prove that giant monsters exist. And I joined Monarch and created this expedition to prove the existence of giant monsters. And so now that's what we're doing. But we should get out of here so that way the cavalry can come. And Packard's like, no, no, no. I'm the cavalry.
Mm-hmm.
Look at me. Look at me. I'm going to kill Kong.
Yeah.
So Packard, of course, dresses all that up. And, oh, we have one more soldier out there that we need to find, Major Jack Chapman.
Who has a son, Billy.
He has a son. We need to find him.
We need to find him.
So Jack Chapman's alone in a downed helicopter with the rest of the bombs. So that's why Packard wants to go find him. Of course,
yeah. This is pretty, if you have an ounce of media literacy, this is, again, it's not a subtle movie. This is very clear.
Yeah. Like, Packard is not immediately raving, like, we need to kill that giant monkey to avenge my men. He's like, no, we still have our orders. We need to find our missing comrade.
And it's smart of the colonel to dress it up as, like, we have to go get Chapman. Because here's the thing about the U.S. military, is that they are very good about getting their soldiers back. Like, that is a very big thing in the U.S. military, is getting our guys and girls home.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was something that was really demoralizing to the Axis powers in World War II, was that they would see, like, in the Pacific theater, there's accounts of these Japanese sailors or airmen seeing the U.S. airmen go down and then seeing other American soldiers rescue them.
Mm-hmm.
And just the way that the U.S. military tried to save as many of its soldiers as it could / get back as many bodies as it could, in comparison to the attitudes of the Axis powers, basically being like, throw more meat into the grinder. Not to say that the U.S. military isn't essentially throwing meat into the grinder, but it's trying to recycle, reuse, save as much. Like,
I will say that this movie does have a lot of shots of, like, hey, like, even during the Kong helicopter fight, they're like going down to try to save people from downed helicopters before Kong stomps on them.
No man left behind. Like, that is a really big, important value in American culture.
And the guy that they're trying to find, ostensibly, Major Jack Chapman, there's like 3 different shots that we cut to him throughout the movie. I'm just going to sum up his whole journey here.
Mm-hmm.
So he's at a lake. and then he watches Kong once again sneaking up on someone. He comes into the lake.
I
He's
don't know
like,
that there was a lot of loud, like, crunch, crunch, crunch.
fair enough, but he gets to the lake and Kong starts cleaning his wounds because he did get shot,
Mm-hmm.
and then he just fights a giant octopus just like the original movie
Mm-hmm.
and eats it. And then later on, Major Jack Chapman sees a large stick bug, really like a log bug with like the size of it, and he like scares it away. And it's like, oh hey,
Yeah,
like
it's like a cricket.
yeah, it's like a cricket, but it like
Grasshopper.
looks like a giant log. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh hey, more of the world building of the ecology of this island. Cool. And then he turns around and gets ate by another giant monster. A skull crawler is what we will
Mhm.
later figure out. But real quick, Jack Chapman is played by Toby Kebbell, who is also the face reference for Kong's motion capture.
Now that you say that, I'm like, oh my god, that's what it is.
So when he's staring at Kong at the lake scene, he's
Yeah.
staring at his own face.
Yeah.
Which is pretty nice. They got other people to do like the greater motion capture for Kong,
Mhm.
but like there's behind the scenes clips of him with the dots on his face and the
Yeah.
tech and all that.
It was. He was like a callback. Wasn't there? Him and Chapman and Conrad kind of felt like callbacks to the guy in King Kong a
I
little bit.
I remember spotting something like that.
I think the
with
thing about Chapman too is that the way that the movie keeps coming back to him and the way that it's set him up a little, you do sort of think that he is going to be like a lead. Because, I mean, I could be wrong, but I feel like in the other, there's kind of two male leads aside from King Kong in the previous Kong movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you sort of think that it's going to be, oh, it's Chapman and Conrad are the two male leads with the blonde,
Yeah.
and then Chapman dies.
Well, we do get another lead character, though. See, Team Everyone Else encounters human natives of Skull Island,
Mhm.
which we later learn are the Iwi tribe. And there, they also encounter a World War II American fighter pilot, Hank Marlowe, played by John C. Reilly. And I remember first watching this movie and being jump scared by John C. Reilly being in this movie. I'm like, whoa, hang on, what?
I love Marlowe.
Yeah. Marlowe is so good. He is the emotional center of this movie, which is weird because he shows up like halfway through it, technically. I mean, he's in the first shot, but we
Yeah.
don't. Anyway, he's been on the island for 28 years. He became friends with Gunpei. He became friends with the Iwi tribe. He's like, yeah, they're great. No crime, no personal property. They're past all that. They don't speak, but they have some form of communication with Marlowe, so it's implied either telepathy or just
I just thought
they just nod
I
at
didn't
each
think
other.
telepathy. I think that it's just nonverbal communication.
Yeah. They very clearly have their own culture. They have like face coverings,
Mhm.
they have piercings, and I don't remember what exactly it's called, but the thing where it's like you create dimples in your
like
face.
scarification.
Yeah, they have scarification, but they also have like a huge they also have a huge dam that has like engineering that they can open up gates to allow boats through,
Mhm.
and it's very clear that the dam is to keep out most of the giant monsters from the island. And it's very clear that they, for their purposes of living on Skull Island, have an advanced culture, advanced
Yeah, they're doing
technology.
great.
They're doing great.
As Harlow says, they're past all that. Like these guys have got it going on.
Yeah.
They
also
not Harlow, Marlowe.
in the ruins of a boat, they also have what is essentially a museum set up, like a bunch of paintings on a bunch of stones, and Marlowe gives the big exposition. Kong is the last of his kind. His parents were killed by giant monsters that live in tunnels underneath Skull Island, known as skull crawlers. I love their design, by the way, because
They're great.
they have like elongated skull faces. They don't have legs; they just have one long tail, so they're moving around on their two arms. They're so creepy.
Yeah, they're
And-
great. They're great creatures.
And the Iwi tribe sees Kong as sort of a benevolent god that they just don't mess with.
Mhm.
And Kong just kind of watches over them, very Mothra-like.
Well, what sort of threat could they be to Kong?
Exactly.
I
mean, but if you piss them off,
Yeah.
if you bring in the helicopters. There's also a really great scene where Marlowe is like, yeah, and he takes care of the skull crawlers. I haven't had to talk in a while, and that's the first time I ever said that name, and I'm kind of regretting it now. No, I like that name. Yeah, it's a good name. Okay, because it sounds dumb. I love that.
Yeah,
I love
that was a fun bit.
Because that was what I was harping on when we were talking on the Godzilla anime trilogy, is like there's the the winged Godzilla pterodactyl creatures or whatever, and no one gives them a name.
Yeah.
And it's so annoying. Like, that's part of the fun of doing a giant monster movies. You have the scene where someone gives them a name.
Yeah, and Skullcrawler is a very apt name. They
Yeah.
have a very bear skull-like head, and they crawl.
Yep. Marlowe also made a boat out of his and Gunpei's planes, and he calls it the Gray Fox.
Gunpei helped him, and
Gunpei.
then Gunpei died, so its construction stalled.
Yeah, exactly. They were going to try to use the boat to escape Kong Skull Island. Sorry, Skull Island. It feels weird to say just Skull Island. Anyway, but he got eaten by a skull crawler. But they created the boat and they called it the Gray Fox, which is a reference to Gray Fox from Metal Gear Solid. A lot of references in this movie. So Marlowe grabs Gunpei's sword, says goodbye to the Iwis, and heads off with the gang because finally he has hope that he can get off Skull Island and perhaps see his wife and his son who he has never met, and perhaps get a hot dog, a beer, and see a baseball game. Marlowe, so good.
Yeah, he's really good. And he is, again, we're bringing in that World War II era America into Vietnam. Again, we are continuing the conversation of World War II versus Vietnam, Americana. You know, we have a lot of people that are very disillusioned right now. And this is a guy that is like, I just want a beer, a hot dog, and a Cubs game.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, you know, it's this. I really am fascinated by this movie's like feelings with America and the nuance.
Well, Marlowe is sort of the optimistic thematic core of this movie because this is a Vietnam movie.
Of course he's optimistic. He's from World War II.
Exactly. But it shows the effects of war on people. And Marlowe is like, look, I was in World War II. I befriended the guy who tried to kill me. And now I just want to return home to my family and have a hot dog, a beer, and a baseball game. He's very clearly gone through some stuff. He shows like signs of just being a little screwed up in the head. But at the same time, he's just like nothing but friendly to people.
Yeah.
And I will say I love time displaced characters because they're an endless font of jokes. There's a few different conversations where
he's like, the fuck is this music?
Yeah. There's one conversation where Marlowe is like, what happened to the war? Did we win? And they're like, which one? Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
There's another conversation where he's like, hey, so have the Cubs won a World Series yet?
Yeah, and they rag on him for being a Cubs fan.
By the way, they put that line in the movie. Cubs won the World Series in 2016, right after this movie, right before this movie came out. So another line that was
unintentionally funny by them laughing about the concept of Cubs winning, and then they win. Yeah.
And there's one other conversation where he's like someone tells him like, "Oh yeah, we put a man on the moon." What? Up there in the sky? Did we leave him there?
What's he eating?
What's he eating? It's great. He's great. He's so good.
Yeah, he's really good, and I do think that his rapport with all of the young soldiers does help. With, again, you know, there's too many of them and they don't have a lot of character, but
his initial interaction with Packard is so interesting because Packard immediately recognizes him and immediately respects his rank.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh, hey, you are part of the U.S. military. Like, you're displaced out of time, but like, you're still a ranking soldier. Hell yeah.
He's an officer. He's a lieutenant.
Yeah.
He might be. I'm not sure. I can't remember if they mention. Is Chapman a lieutenant? Maybe
he's I don't know what Chapman is. I know Packard is lieutenant colonel, but I don't have the rank for Marlowe.
There should be a lieutenant. He's a lieutenant colonel, or is he a colonel?
Well, okay, wait, Chapman is a major.
Okay, Chapman's a major. Okay,
yeah,
that's a higher rank than lieutenant. But sorry, Conrad, he's just a colonel, right?
Conrad is no longer in the military. He's
Packard.
Packard is a
Samuel
lieutenant
L. Jackson.
colonel.
He's a
Samuel L.
lieutenant
Jackson
colonel?
is a lieutenant colonel.
I thought he was colonel.
Well, they call him colonel, but he's technically a lieutenant colonel according to Wikizilla.
Oh, because they.
Anyway, rankings.
Well, colonel is above lieutenant colonel, so this is it's the last rank before you are a general. Colonel is the last rank before you are a general. It is when you are a field. It's the highest officer on the field.
Yeah. So. In the midst of all this, by the way, Weaver, the anti-war photographer, Brie Larson, she finds a giant water buffalo underneath a downed chopper. She tries to lift it up, doesn't, and then Kong picks it up. Third moment of Kong sneaking up on someone. And then he like looks down at Weaver and she's like, And so we have the moment of Kong acknowledging a woman. Gotta have that in the movie. But yeah, he's he doesn't immediately try to squash her. Kong will not attack you unless you attack him.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's a greater metaphor going on there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Oh, they'll say it.
no.
They say it later
Yeah.
on in the movie.
So Team Everyone Else heads out on the Gray Fox, the boat. They catch Packard on the radio, and they're like, hell yeah, let's reunite. And then we have a quick scene where someone's picked up by these, like, pterodactyl birds with sawtooth noses, and they literally just pick him up in the sky and casually tear off his arm. And everyone's like, yeah. It's just a real quick moment of like, hey, by the way, you're still in hell.
Yeah, there's a lot of, all of this death in the movie is incredibly visceral and brutal.
I skipped this scene, which I can't believe I did, because it's honestly one of my favorite scenes in the movie, where it's like Packard and Team Military are going through a bamboo forest, and then it turns out there's a giant spider above them whose legs look like bamboo, and he impales a guy with the bamboo legs, and they have to cut off the bamboo legs. That way the giant spider can like come down, and then Packard shoots him in the face. But it's a great monster movie fight.
Yeah. One, the jungle is literally fighting them, which is how the Americans...
Oh god, the trees are moving.
Yeah. This is how the Americans describe combat in Vietnam. Two, that giant spider, the bamboo through the mouth, is a reference to Cannibal Holocaust.
Oh, yeah.
And then three, right after that, Samuel L. Jackson's like, shake it off, guys. Let's move out. Just very casual. And then another thing that keeps happening in this movie is everybody's like, is nobody going to say anything? Are we not going to talk about this? Blah, blah, blah. This movie is about the unrelenting trauma of war and the way that it dehumanizes all of us.
Yep.
Yep.
So everyone comes together, and they're like, great, we're all together. Let's get off this island. Packard's like, no, we still need to find Chapman. And everyone's like, ah. And then they go through a boneyard that's filled with green smoke. There's these, like, vents that let loose this, like, noxious gas. And as they're going through the boneyard, which we see the bones of Kong's parents, as along with some, like, dinosaur bones, suddenly a skull crawler appears.
Oh, sorry. We know Chapman's dead by now, right?
No, not yet. This is the scene where we find out.
Oh, no, because didn't we see... I thought we saw Chapman get killed.
We the audience know he's killed.
Yeah.
We saw him
That's
get
what I'm
eaten by a
saying.
skull
That's
crawler.
when I say we, I mean not we.
The main characters find out because a skull crawler appears in the boneyard and literally hacks up his skull with his dog tags.
Yeah, no, but by the time that everybody has reunited, we already know that Chapman is dead.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So they're in the green smoke boneyard. Skullcrawler appears. John Goodman gets eaten. A bunch of leaf wings come in after some explosions. Conrad grabs the katana from Marlowe that belonged to Gunpei, and we get some slow motion shots of him sawing leaf wings in half. Yeah! And then Brie Larson has Conrad's father's lighter that he gave to her in a previous scene, and as a skullcrawler is coming at them, she throws the lighter over a vent of noxious gas, and it blows up and kills the skullcrawler. Yeah!
Sick action sequence.
Great action sequence.
The other thing, too, I thought about when I was watching this scene in particular, but a lot of the scenes, I really like how colorful this movie is.
It's so colorful.
It's so colorful and saturated. It makes everything... It's like a poison dart frog. Everything is beautiful and saturated, and it's going to kill you.
Yeah.
When there's a lot of movies in this time period that were very saturated. It reminds me, I mean, Mad Max Fury Road was a very saturated, colorful movie, and that came out a year before. Oh, I like it. I really enjoy how bright the movie is.
Yeah. And I think this is kind of the scene where I mentioned earlier, it's like, this is a horrifying movie, but it's not a horror movie.
Yeah.
And this scene in particular is shot like an action movie. Green smoke, slow motion, cutting up leaf wings with a katana, like, very cool.
Yeah.
So Conrad finds Chapman's dog tags, and he's like, hey, Chapman's dead, let's go. And Packard's like, okay, no, actually, really, I want the bombs to kill Kong. That's what I'm really here for. And so there's a fight. Conrad, like an argument. Yeah. And Conrad is like, hey, listen, let me take the civilians out of here. You take the soldiers to kill Kong then. And so they split up. So now it's team kill Kong and team get out of here.
And all of the military guys have to go on team kill Kong.
Yes, because it's the military. You have to follow orders. Conrad and Weaver, Tom Hiddleston and Brie Larson, they scale a hill, and they have a nightly face-to-face encounter with Kong as he comes up through the mist, and Weaver gets to touch his face, and they're like, aw. And then they're like, well, we can't let them kill Kong now. He's just a gentle creature.
Hmm. There's also somewhere in here. There's another great line when uh it's when Harlow is talking to the boys. I think it's when they say that they're gonna
Marlowe.
Yeah,
John
Marlowe.
C.
I keep
Reilly's
saying
character.
Harlow. I know I keep saying Harlow because it's Hank Marlowe.
Yeah.
Um, I'm trying. I like
That's a ship name between his two personalities.
I just saw this movie literally 2 days ago, but I have a lot like the in my memory of it, the order of the scenes is a little bit mixed up. But one of the great moments is when they are like, "Oh, we're gonna go into the jungle again, or go to this, the shitty side of the island, or something like that." And Marlowe looks at all of the young boys. Is like, "You're a good group of boys to die with. We're all gonna die here together. You shouldn't have come here." And I just love that moment.
Yeah.
It's so funny, but it's so on point for
He's
everything that's happening.
he's very clearly someone who's traumatized and still getting through it with an optimistic smile, but he's also like very clearly hasn't socialized with people in for a long time. There's another scene where he's talking to a random character and he's like, "I am going to stab you in the chest by tonight." He's like, "What?" It's like, "Oh, I didn't realize I spoke that out loud. Sometimes I don't know if I say something in my head versus out
Yeah.
loud. Am I still talking?" Like, there's a lot of great scenes with him. He's the best character in the movie.
You're a good group of boys to die with. Yep, it's a war movie.
It's a war movie. So let's get into the action. We're going into Act 3 here. So Packard fills a lake with napalm. I wonder if he loves the smell of it in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And he sets a trap for Kong. He lights the water on fire. Kong shows up. They lead him into some explosives. They blow them up and mess up Kong. And as Kong like falls to the ground, Packard is setting up more explosives around there. They're gonna do it. Like, by the way, during this scene, Packard is like looking through the flames and sees Kong's face, and we get a close up of Samuel L. Jackson's eyes, and we see the literal fire reflected in his eyes. Subtlety is for chumps.
It's a great shot.
It's a great shot. So good. We have so many scenes where Samuel L. Jackson is staring into Kong's eyes. It's just like, I want to kill you. I want to kill you more than anything else in the world.
He's got a great stare.
He's got a great stare. Once again, perfect casting.
Robert knows how to utilize his actors.
But before Packard can set off the rest of the bombs, Team Get Out of Here comes in and stops him.
Mhm.
And they're pointing guns at each other, and they convince some of the other soldiers, including one young soldier wearing a red headband just like Rambo.
Yep.
Vietnam.
He's like the radio. He was handling the radio a lot.
Yeah, he was handling. He's. I didn't mention him because he doesn't do anything, but he's just in the background. But he has the red headband, and that's his personality.
He's He's one of the younger ones too. I think.
And then the biggest skull crawler, the Skull Devil, shows up.
That's the big one.
Yep. Love you, Marlowe. So everyone runs. Packard is like, "I'm still gonna blow up Kong," and Kong literally just raises a fist and just smashes down Packard.
Mhm.
So he's gone. And then the Skull Devil beats up the weakened Kong, which, he took a bunch of fire and explosives to the face. That makes sense. Everyone else is trying to leave. The Skull Devil doesn't finish off Kong. He goes after the humans. And this is also one of the most iconic scenes in this movie.
So before we get into it, I just want to say, I love Cole. He's one of the most...
I haven't mentioned him in this whole time, but this is his moment.
To me, I think he's been one of the most distinctive of the soldier characters.
Yes.
He's older than a lot of the other guys. He has a very off sort of disposition. He says things that are mismatched sometimes to the moment. After the helicopter situation, there is like the other guys are freaking out, and they're like, "Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, are you not freaking out, blah blah blah, etc." And he's like, "That was an unconventional encounter. There's no tactical precedence. We did the best we could in the situation."
I love that.
I love him. He's just so weird, and he is acting as kind of an older brother father figure a little bit to the younger soldiers in a lot of ways. He's a very grounding presence, even if his reactions to things are not necessarily in alignment with everybody else's reactions. This made him stand out.
Yeah.
And I really liked him. And he gets the best death.
The Skull
It's so
Devil.
funny.
The Skull Devil's catching up to everyone, and Cole is like, "You guys go on ahead. I'll sacrifice myself." And he has these 2 hand grenades in his hands, and he's just walking up to the Skull Devil. He's like, "Come on, eat me, come on." And then the Skull Devil turns, swats him with his tail. He flies into a cliff face and blows up.
I cackled. Oh my god. It was so funny and unexpected. And then also I feel like it made such a commentary again on war and how even in attempting to sacrifice his life for his friends, it like didn't work.
Yeah.
You know?
The glorification of the heroic sacrifice
Yeah.
is a big thing in war, and we mentioned Mad Max Fury Road earlier. That's a central theme in that.
Yeah.
But also in this movie, it's just like this would have made sense cinematically for there to be a big heroic sacrifice, but no, he doesn't get that.
Nope, that's not what this
He
movie's
gets
about.
swatted by a tail into a cliff face and blows up.
Yeah, this movie's all about how there is no meaning in the war.
Yeah.
In his death, if he sacrificed himself to take out the Skull Devil, there would have been meaning in his death, but there isn't any because war is often meaningless. Death is like it's all for nothing.
But you know who does get to save the day?
Ayo.
Kong. Kong shows up out of the sky, smashes a boulder into the Skull Devil's face. They're fighting. Skull Devil pushes him into the ruins of an old shipwreck, and Kong gets caught by the large chains on the ship. And the Skull Devil's about to come down on him. But then the humans come in, and they fire machine guns and flares at the Skull Devil. They're coming to Kong's rescue.
Team Get Out of Here
has
decided, while Packard was laying a booby trap, that they have to save...
Yeah, Team Military's all dead at this point.
Yeah, and Team Get Out of Here has decided that they need to save Kong because Kong is keeping the bigger monsters at bay. That would be a huge threat.
Yeah.
So they have to go back and stop Packard. This all happened off camera, and then this is when Conrad and company show up.
Yeah, and this is continuing a theme that's going to appear throughout the MonsterVerse movies of humans deciding to help the giant monsters.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that more in the next movie. We talk about Godzilla, King of the Monsters. So Kong breaks free from the chains of the old shipwreck. And then
Kong in chains.
Kong in chains.
You gotta get Kong in chains.
Gotta get Kong in chains.
And they get him in the anchor chains.
And then he grabs the chain that has a massive boat propeller wrapped around on the other end, and he tears it off, and he uses it as a makeshift flail to mess up the Skull Devil. So this is also another theme. Kong gets to use weapons.
Yeah, he is a tool-using monkey.
He's a tool-using monkey, and he is great at it. So Weaver falls into the water, Brie Larson's character. Kong saves her, because you got to have that moment of the blonde in Kong's hand.
You gotta.
But then the Skull Devil tries to eat Weaver, and so eats Kong's fist. Like, literally just wraps his mouth around Kong's fist, trying to eat the human in his palm.
Yeah.
And then Kong just pulls his hand out, along with all of the innards of the Skull Devil.
I'm like, I guess he was holding it.
Like in the palm, like
maybe he was
pads
holding
of
her,
his
and then
palm.
maybe he like hooked his like thumb and his forefinger perhaps
around
the guts and pulled it out without, because it's like, he can't open his palm because then he'll drop her.
I mean, all I could think about is like he's shaking his fist, the fist goes into the Skull Devil, and then he pulls out. Like, Weaver should be dead. Like, from G-Force.
He is holding her so gently in his giant palm. That was all I could think about, was like, he has got his ability to assess his own strength in comparison to a human, and to hold his hand in such a way as to not crush her completely into a paste. It's like a golden retriever holding an egg.
And we set up that he already has a pre-existing relationship with humans.
Yeah,
like, this is a good movie that foreshadows
probably
stuff
has not been the first time he has held a person in his hands.
So
a lot of trial and error to get there.
The giant monster fight is over. We got the cool finishing move. So everyone leaves the island. Kong beats his chest, once again the king of his domain. Marlowe reunites with his wife and his son he never met, and he enjoys a hot dog, a beer,
a Budweiser,
and a baseball game
on his color TV.
In his living room. It's great. It's awesome. His wife did not remarry in 28 years, so
She could have, and then the other
there,
guy maybe died.
there is some conversation of Marlo being like, look, I don't like, she probably did find someone
Yeah.
else. I just want to see her again, which is also very cool. Marlo's a great guy, but it's just ending on that is such a good emotional payout for the movie.
Yeah, and this is where we get to this movie is, yes, it's critical of Vietnam, but it's not as cynical as it could have been.
Yes.
Because they give Marlo his happy Americana ending.
I mean, we could have had the cynical we could have had the cynical ending where the characters are like, war has corrupted us, and so in order to make sure that it doesn't corrupt these naive, innocent indigenous people, we are going to kill ourselves by giant monster.
Yeah. The I'd say I feel like a more cynical movie either would have had Marlo return and his like wife is dead or something, you know, or remarried maybe. I mean, I almost was like kind of thinking, because I forgot since watching it in 2017 and then rewatching it this last week, I forgot exactly how his thing ended. And when they had him with the flowers and he was in front of the house, I kind of thought they were just going to end there. And you were going to be left with, you don't know the reception that he's going to get, which would have been, I think, very poignant because the Vietnam soldiers that came home to a lot of disarray, in contrast to the hero's welcome that the World War II soldiers got.
Yeah.
But he's a World War II soldier, so he gets the hero's welcome.
He gets the hot dog and the beer.
And none of the Vietnam boys get to go home.
Nope.
So that is...
well, hang on. Red headband. I think he survived.
Okay, so like one of them.
One of them. The young guy.
Yeah, oh, the red band. Yeah, the band.
The Rambo gets to come back home.
Yeah. Well, he was not Rambo. He was
not Rambo,
he had
but
a radio.
The red yeah.
He had the red headband, but he had a radio the whole time. Like, oh, he was, importantly, he was the one that turned
against Packard
we didn't even go over this. But when everybody's at gunpoint, in the fight, like when they came back in, when the team Get Out of Here came back in to save Kong, and everybody's holding everybody else at gunpoint, he's the one that turns on Packard and points his gun at Packard.
Yeah.
And then also another great Cole moment. Cole is talking to, I can't remember who he's talking to, but he's like talking about how he carries an AK-47 instead of an M15, and he took it out of a farmer, it off a farmer in Vietnam who said that he had never held a gun until had never even seen a gun until the U.S. military showed up. And he says, sometimes there's not an enemy until you create one. And
then he says, but I've got his gun.
Yeah. And oh my God, if that ain't the most succinct encapsulation of not just this movie, but the context that this movie exists in and the greater, American military industrial complex in the late 20th century and into the 21st century. Wow. Oh my God. What a great line. Again, Cole gets bangers. There's like a couple of the Vietnam boys, I think, that make it.
Yeah, there's
Cole's buddy.
There's a lot of characters, but a lot of them like fade into
the
background.
A lot of them don't make it.
A lot of them die. And yeah, that's a big part of the movie. That's why we need the meat grinder.
And the fact that they all die in a mission after the war has ended.
Yes. It's like they were about to go home, and it's like, nope, actually, you got one more mission.
They didn't even die in the Vietnam War. They died for some other...
It wasn't the Viet Cong that got him, it
venture.
Was the Cong.
Yeah, and it was a venture that was, I mean, arguably a success, because if you see their mission objective as confirming the existence of King Kong, then yes, they did do that.
But it was a venture that they were lied to about.
Yeah. They were lied to about. The true objective was unclear to them. They were lied to, they were deceived. And also, what's the point?
Yeah.
You prove that King Kong, what's the point now? Like, you didn't have to go there.
Well, there is a world building intent here.
Well, sure. Because we need it for the larger franchise and whatnot. But looking at this.
Well, but here's the thing. Monarch, after finding out about King Kong and having a bunch of pictures, justifies their existence in a big way. Mm-hmm. And so that's why we see their presence in Godzilla 2014. And that's why they get a bunch of new tech in Godzilla King of the Monsters 2019. And to set that up, we have our post-credits scene where Conrad and Marlo are held for questioning in a Monarch facility. And then Brooks and San Lin show up and show them old cave paintings.
I
Of
didn't see.
You didn't see the post-credit scene? You stopped watching the movie?
After the initial credits were done, it had like the cool credits and then it went into the crawl and I was like, all right, bye.
I think this is like the third post-credit scene that you're like, wait, there was a post-credit scene.
I don't believe in post-credit scenes. I don't. Listen, as somebody that works in the movie industry, I'm going to stake my claim right here. And if I ever make something, like, I am the person in charge, and then there is a post-credit scene, you can call me on it, but I don't believe in a post-credit scene.
So there was a post-credit scene.
Should have been in the fucking movie if I was meant to watch it.
Conrad and Marlowe are held for questioning in a Monarch facility. Brooks and San Lin show them old cave paintings of Godzilla, Mothra, Rodan, and King Ghidorah.
It's just a teaser trailer for the next one.
Exactly.
Like, that's the thing. A post-credit scene, if it's important, it's in the movie. If not, it's just a teaser trailer.
But that was the thing. This was the Sam Jackson at the end of Iron Man. This is, hey, Kong is going to be a part of this greater, wider
Kong
world.
Will return
Kong
in
will
Avengers
return.
Endgame.
But this was also their statement of intent of like, we're also bringing back Rodan, King Ghidorah, Mothra, all those monsters. They're coming back, folks.
And they did.
And they did. So, Kayla, what's the next movie that they come in?
Oh, did we go through all of the fun facts?
We went through, I believe, all the fun facts. The Gray Fox, Vote Roberts being his own
quote,
big credit.
Who wrote this? It's a movie that takes some of our best and most talented working actors and gives them nothing that even resembles an arc.
Oh yeah, that was one more critique from the Honest Trailers video.
That's true.
That was Vote Roberts saying that about his own movie.
Listen, character arcs are really important, obviously, but sometimes you can still make an entertaining movie without a traditional character arc.
I mean, we're both horror fans, so like we know movies where it's like we just have these characters, not to give them arc, but to just kind of have events happen to them. But there's also a lot of horror movies with character arcs.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of horror movies where it's like these characters exist to be put into the meat grinder of the slasher is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So actually, real quick before we transition to the next episode, what would you rate Kong Skull Island?
That's a great question. I feel like 4 stars is kind of a lot. Well, you know me, I tend to be very
critical.
Critical. Well, I tend to be very conservative with my ratings. There's a lot of 2 and 3 star movies. I'm like, it's a 2 or 3 star movie, but I really like it.
Yeah.
So I would say that this is like a 3.5 to 3.75.
Oh, don't be doing that 3.75 shit.
4 just seems like a lot.
Just give it the 4.
And this is a 3.5 with a heart on Letterboxd.
Oh my god.
This is I really I do really fine. Whatever. I'll give it a 4 star.
Yeah.
I really enjoy this movie. I probably won't watch it again for another 10 years.
Yeah.
Like
this is a movie where you don't think about it after.
Yeah.
But while you're watching it, you have such a good time.
I mean, I thought about it for like 15 minutes after. I think the thing is I think the thing about this movie and part of why I like it so much is that when I went into it, I did not expect to like it as much as I did. I had really low expectations and then I had a really great time. And I felt like the movie had a lot of unexpected depth to it. And then technically it was all really good. Again, the biggest weakness for it is just the human characters, having too many of them and none of them really having much to do other than like be POV characters to the greater like Kong situation. I don't know. Like that's why I said it's like 4 stars seems like a bit much, which is why I'm like 3.5 and I really liked it, When I don't think about the star rating to me is not an emotional. I try not to make it an emotional rating. It's like a overall technical rating. Does that make sense?
I feel like it's impossible though to separate emotions from the technical rating. Like
I don't think
at the end of the day, movies are art, So
Well, yes.
part of the emotions that it elicits, it's going to be part of your rating, your critique.
Agreed. But I don't try to get overly my star. We don't need to. Nobody cares about my star rating. We don't need to get into the specifics of it.
We have so many.
It's objective.
It's
objective. Like the star rating is ultimately an objective scale. There is no.
Wait, you mean subjective scale? Or objective.
Subjective. Yeah, sorry.
Yes.
It's subjective. It's not objective. It's
No,
completely
these are our
subjective.
objective ratings.
There is
We are the
no-
final word on these movies.
We don't even have a rubric that we have outlined clearly. It's literally just an off-the-cuff thing. It's not like I have a fucking rubric that I can look at and be like, okay, so how many stars does
Grading
it get?
the movie.
Yeah, I don't believe, because here's the thing. At the end of the day, I think that star ratings are bullshit. I've said this before. I think I said this in the very
You were
first
the one
one.
that introduced them to the podcast.
Yes, because it's good for clickbait. It's because it's something. It's
we got some
something
mileage
that
out
audience.
of that 5 out of 5 Shin
this is
Godzilla
a
short.
moment. This is a moment. It's something that is the audience tends to expect it with these types of podcasts that are about reviews and analysis. It's good clickbait, which is good for helping our podcast grow. But I don't think that star ratings in a subjective situation as a movie, I think that star ratings are ultimately meaningless because what somebody would consider 5 stars versus what another person considers 5 stars. And then what does that even say about the movie? I'm much more interested in everything that I say about the movie until I get to the 5 stars or the 3 stars or the 1 star. That's actual analysis.
We've also had conversations where we have different 3-star ratings where it's like 3-star, this movie checked off all the boxes but was mid, and 3-star, this movie did a lot of cool things and a lot of bad things.
Exactly.
We need to do a tier list video at some point, I think, where we just get on and start throwing the boxes on the tier lists.
That's insane. I don't. I like that you think that I could recall the movies that I have all seen and discussed about well enough
that's what I'm
to
saying.
then go back
I
and
think
do
it would
a
be
tier
fun
list.
to go through the podcast and write down all of our ratings and then revisit them. It's
Crazy.
Okay, so this is what we rated Son of Godzilla before. What's our rating now? I think that might be cool for a later Godzilla retrospective.
I don't know. If you guys are interested in that, let us know.
Yeah, let us know in the comments. Also, if you're listening to this on YouTube, like and subscribe. If you're listening to this on a podcatcher, be sure to leave a comment or leave that like. If you want to support us, be sure to go to our Ko-fi at ko-fi.com/Digital Kaiju Studios. We haven't done a plug for our bonus episodes, but we got a bunch of bonus episodes where we talk about other movies.
I'll tell you right now, Cloverfield's coming at you.
Yeah, it might already be out.
By the time this one goes up, Cloverfield might already be out.
Yes, but Cloverfield is edited by the time we're recording this.
Yeah.
It might be out by now, and you can find out by going to our Ko-fi and throwing some money our way and supporting independent media. Woohoo!
When did we do Jurassic Park? We have to do Kong.
We have to do Kong. Jurassic Park will probably be a good one.
Okay,
there's a few others. Anyway, okay, so
next we'll be watching Godzilla, King of the Monsters, the 2019 MonsterVerse movie. Not the 1956 remake of the original Godzilla. We already did that. Gorilla Whale is a production of Digital Kaiju Studios. It is hosted and produced by Kevin Carpenter and Kayla Knudsen. Gorilla Whale has no official affiliation with Toho, Legendary, or any other companies associated with the Godzilla franchise. We thank you for watching along with us. Until next time, watch out for kaiju.
Watch out for kaiju.